Welcome to Heavy Storytelling. We are going to be reading a story, but first up we are going to be reading the Bible, and then we're going to be doing, not the synopsis, then we're going to be reading Pilgrim's Progress. I was talking about this book. Then we're going to be reading Treasure Island. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to like, button, subscribe, hit the bell on this video. My dad is coming up to take my place. I'm going to be gone forever.
Forever until tomorrow.
Yep.
So, how are we doing tonight? All right, the tripod is being weird. All right, so I am about to start 1 Corinthians chapter 6. This is the English Standard Version of the Bible. Let me begin. When one of you has a grievance against another, does he dare go to law before the unrighteous instead of the saints? Or do you not know that the saints will judge the world? And if the world is to be judged by you, are you incompetent to try trivial cases? Do you not know that we are to judge angels? How much more then matters pertaining to this life? So, if you have such cases, why do you lay them before those who have no standing in the church? I say this to your shame. Can it be that there is no one among you wise enough to settle a dispute between the brothers, but brother goes to law against brother, and that before unbelievers? To have lawsuits at all with one another is already a defeat for you. Why not rather suffer wrong? Why not rather be defrauded? But you yourselves wrong and defraud even your own brothers. Or do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? The unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God. Do not be deceived. Neither the sexually immoral, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor men who practice homosexuality, nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. And such were some of you. But you were washed, you were sanctified, you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, and by the Spirit of our God. All things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be dominated by anything. Food is meant for the stomach, and the stomach for food, and God will destroy both one and the other. The body is not meant for sexual immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. And God raised the Lord, and will also raise us up by his power. Do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ? Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them members of a prostitute? Never. Or do you not know that he who is joined to a prostitute becomes one body with her? For as it is written, the two will become one flesh. But he who is joined to the Lord becomes one spirit with him. Flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexually immoral person sins against his own body. Or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. That's the end of 1 Corinthians chapter 6. So next time, hopefully tomorrow, we will be on 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And so now we're on to Treasure Island. So in the last reading, they had a conversation with the captain. The captain's not too happy with the situation as it turned out to be, and so he's gonna go ahead and deal with it. He thinks that the first mate is an honest dude, but not very professional, I guess is probably the best way to say it. And as it turns out, the first mate, who is a real eagle, by the way, he is, I guess, honest, but not. He is found drunk a lot, and he so the captain was right on that one. But the crew turns out to be pretty handy, and so they get to the island without any problems. And so that's basically where we are. And then at the end of the last chapter, Jim Hawkins found himself in an apple barrel where I think it's Long John, that really super professional cook that they found. I don't know, it must have come from nowhere. That just happened to be available. So, hi, Dad, it is me, Kimmy. Hi, Kimmy, it is me, Dad. Okay, so I'm going to read chapter 11 and chapter 12. I've got happy faces or smiley or laughy faces going around on my thing. Go ahead and hit those laughy faces if you want to while I'm reading. That's fine, or the hearts are great too. Ha ha, LOL. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started reading. This is chapter 11, What I Heard in the Apple Barrel. No, not I, said Silver. Flint was captain. I was quartermaster along of my timber leg. The same broadside I lost my leg, old Pugh lost his deadlights. It was a master surgeon, him, that amputated me out of college and all Latin by the bucket and what not. But he was hanged like a dog and sun-dried like the rest at Corso Castle. That was Robert's men, that was, and comed of changing names to their ships, Royal Fortune and so on. Now what a ship was christened, so let her stay, I says. So it was with the Cassandra as brought us all safe home from Malabar after England took the Viceroy in the Indies. So it was with the old Walrus, Flint's old ship, as I've seen amuck with a red blood and fit to sink with gold. Ah, cried another voice, that of the youngest hand on board, and evidently full of admiration. He was the flower of the flock, was Flint. Davis was a man too, by all accounts, said Silver. I never sailed along with him, first with England and then with Flint. That's my story, and now here on my account, in a manner of speaking. I laid by 900 safe from England, and 2,000 after Flint. That ain't bad for a man before the mast, all safe in bank. 'Tain't earning now, it's saving, does it? You may lay to that. Where's all England men now? I don't know. Where's Flint's? Why, most of 'em on board here. I'm glad to get the duff. Been begging before that, some on 'em. Old Pugh, as had lost his sight and might have thought shame spends £1,200 in a year like a lord in Parliament. Where is he now? Well, he's dead now and under hatches, but for 2 year before that, shiver me timbers, the man was starving. He begged and he stole and he cut throats and starved at that, by the powers. Well, it ain't much use after all, said the young man. 'Tain't much use for fools. You may lay to it, that or nothing, cried Silver. But now, you look here, you're young, you are, but you're as smart as paint. I see that when I set my eyes on you, and I'll talk to you like a man. You may imagine how I felt when I heard this abominable old rogue addressing another in the very same words of flattery as he had used to myself. Excuse me. I think if I had been able, that I would have killed him through the barrel. Meantime he ran on, little supposing he was overhead. Here it is about gentlemen of fortune. They lives rough, and they risk swinging, but they eat and drink like fighting cocks, and when a cruise is done, why, it's hundreds of pounds instead of hundreds of farthings in their pockets. Now the most goes for rum and the good fling, and a sea again in their shirts. But that's not the course I lay. I puts it all away, same here, some here, some there, and none too much anywheres by reason of suspicion. I'm 50, mark you. Once back from this cruise, I set up gentlemen in earnest. Time enough, too, says you. Ah, but I lived easy in the meantime, never denied myself a nothing, heart desire, and slipped soft and ate dainty all my days, but when at sea. And how did I begin? Before the mast, like you. Well, said the other, but all the other money's gone now, ain't it? You daren't show face in Bristol after this. Why, where might you suppose it was? Asked Silver derisively. At Bristol and Banks and Places, answered his companion. It were, said the cook. It were when we weighed anchor, but my old missus has it all by now, and the spyglass is sold, lease and goodwill and rigging, and the old girl's off to meet me. I would tell you where, for I trust you, but it 'ud make jealousy amongst the mates. And can you trust your missus? Asked the other. Gentlemen of fortune, returned the cook, usually trust little among themselves, and right they are, you may lay to it. But I have a way with me, I have. When a mate brings a slip on his cable, one as knows me, I mean, it won't be in the same world with old John. There was some that was feared of Pew, and some that was feared of Flint. By Flint his own self was feared of me. Feared he was, and proud. They was the roughest crew afloat, was Flint's. The devil himself would have been feared to go to sea with them. Well, now I tell you, I'm not a boasting man, and you seen yourself how easy I keep company. But when I was quartermaster, lambs wasn't the word for Flint's old buccaneers. Ah, you may be sure of yourself and old John's ship. Well, I tell you now, replied the lad, I didn't half a quarter like the job till I had this talk with you, John, but there's my hand on it now. And a brave lad you were, and smart too, answered Silver, shaking hands so heartily that all the barrel shook, and a finer figurehead for a gentleman of fortune I never clapped my eyes on. By this time I had begun to understand the meaning of their terms. By a gentleman of fortune they plainly meant neither more nor less than a common pirate, and a little scene that I had overheard was the last act in the corruption of one of the honest hands, perhaps of the last one left aboard. But on this point I was soon to be relieved, for, Silver giving a little whistle, a third man strolled up and sat down by the party. Dick Square, said Silver. Oh, I know Dick was square, returned the voice of the coxswain, Israel Hands. He's no fool, is Dick, and he turned his quid and spat. But look here, he went on, here's what I want to know, Barbecue. How long are we a-going to stand off and on like a blessed bumboat? I've had almost enough of Captain Smollett. He's hazed me long enough, by thunder. I want to go into that cabin too, I do. I want their pickles and wines and that. Israel, said Silver, your head ain't much account nor ever was, but you're able to hear, I reckon, leastways your ears is big enough. Now here's what I say. You'll berth forward, and you'll live hard, and you'll speak soft, and you'll keep sober till I give the word, and you may lay to that, my son. Well, I don't say no, do I? Growled the coxswain. What I say is, when. That's what I say. When, by the powers, cried Silver. Well, now, if you want to know, I'll tell you when, the last moment I can manage, and that's when. Here's a first-rate seaman, Captain Smollett, sails the blessed ship for us. Here's the squire and doctor, with a map and such. I don't know where it is, do I? No more do you, says you. Well, then, I mean this squire and doctor shall find the stuff and help us to get it aboard, by the powers. Then we'll see. If I was sure of you all, sons of double Dutchmen, I'd have Captain Smollett navigate us halfway back again before I struck. Why, we're all seamen aboard here, I should think, said the lad Dick. We're all forecastle hands, you mean, snapped Silver. We can steer a course, but who's to set one? That's what all you gentlemen split on, first and last. If I had my way, I'd have Captain Smollett work us back into the trades at least. Then we'd have no blessed miscalculations and a spoonful of water a day. But I know the sort you are. I'll finish with 'em at the island as soon as the blunt's on board, and a pity it is. But you're never happy till you're drunk. Split my sides. I've a sick heart to sail with the likes of you. Easy all, Long John, cried Israel. Who's a crossing of you? Why, how many tall ships, think ye, now, have I seen laid aboard, And how many brisk lads drying in the sun at Execution Dock, cried Silver, and all for this same hurry and hurry and hurry. You hear me? I seen a thing or two at sea, I have. If you would only lay your course and a pint to windward, you would ride in carriages, you would, but not you. I know you. You'll have your mouthful of rum tomorrow and go hang. Everybody'd know you were kind of chaplain, John, but there's others as could hand and steer as well as you, said Israel. They liked a bit of fun, they did. They wasn't so high and dry, no how, but took their fling like jolly companions, every one. So, says Silver. Well, and where are they now? Pew was that sort, and he died a beggar man. Flint was, and he died of rum at Savannah. Ah, they was a sweet crew, they was. Only where are they? But, asked Dick, when do we lay 'em athwart, and what are we to do with 'em, anyhow? There's the man for me, cried the cook. I almost said the crook, admiringly. That's what I call business. Well, what would you think? Put 'em ashore like maroons. That would have been England's way, or cut 'em down like much pork. That would have been Flint's or Billy Bones. Billy was the man for that, said Israel. Dead men don't bite, says he. Well, he's dead now hisself, and he knows the long end and short of it now, and if ever a rough hand come to port, it was Billy. Right you are, said Silver, rough and ready, but mark you here, I'm an easy man. I'm quite the gentleman, says you, but this time it's serious. Duty is duty, mates. I give my vote death. When I'm in Parliament and riding in my coach, I don't want none of these sea lawyers in the cabin a-comin' home unlooked for like the devil at prayers. Why, wait is what I say, but when the time comes, why, let her rip. John, cries the coxswain, you're the man. You'll say so, Israel, when you see, said Silver. Only one thing I claim. I claim Trelawney. I'll wring his calf's head off his body with these hands, Dick, he added, breaking off. You just jump up like a sweet lad and get me an apple to wet my pipe like. You may fancy the terror I was in. I should have leapt out and run for it if I had found the strength, but my limbs and heart alike misgave me. I heard Dick begin to rise, and then someone seemingly stopped him, and the voice of Hans exclaimed, "Oh, stow that! Don't you get sucking of that bilge, John. Let's have a go of the rum." "Dick," said Silver, "I trust you. I've a gauge on the keg, mind. There's the key. You fill the pannikin and bring it up." Terrified as I was, I could not help thinking to myself that this must have been how Mr. Arrow got the strong waters that destroyed him. Dick was gone but a little while, and during his absence Israel spoke straight on in the cook's ear. It was but a word or two that I could catch, and yet I gathered some important news, for besides other scraps that tended to the same purpose, this whole clause was audible. Not another man of them'll jine. Hence there were still faithful men on board. When Dick returned, one after another of the trio took the pannikin and drank, one to luck, another with "Here's to old Flint," and Silver himself saying in a kind of song, "Here's to ourselves, to hold your luck, plenty of prizes and plenty of duff." Just then a sort of brightness fell upon me in the barrel, and looking up I found the moon had risen and was silvering the mizzen-top and shining white on the luff of the foresail, and almost at the same time the voice of the lookout shouted, "Land ho!" Chapter 12. Council of War. How smart is paint? I don't really know. It probably depends on the color. So, all right. So, Chapter 12, Council of War. There was a great rush of feet across the deck. I could hear people tumbling up from the cabin and the forecastle, and slipping in an instant outside my barrel. I dived behind the foresail, made a double toward the stern, and came out upon the open deck in time to join Hunter and Dr. Livesey in the rush for the weather bow. There all hands were already congregated. A belt of fog had lifted almost simultaneously with the appearance of the moon. Away to the southwest of us we saw two low hills about a couple of miles apart, and rising between one of them a third and higher hill whose peak was still buried in the fog. All three seemed sharp and conical in figure. So much I saw, almost in a dream, for I had not yet recovered from my horrid fear of a minute or two before, and then I heard the voice of Captain Smollett issuing orders. The Hispaniola was laid a couple of points nearer the wind, and now sailed a course that would just clear the island on the east. "And now, men," said the captain, when all was sheeted home, "has any one of you ever seen that land ahead?" "I have, sir," said Silver. "I've watered there with a trader I was cook in." "The anchorage is in the south, behind an islet, I fancy?" asked the captain. "Yes, sir, Skeleton Island, they calls it. It were a main place for pirates once, and a hand we had on board knowed all their names for it. The hill to the nor'ard they calls the foremast hill. There are 3 hills in the row running south'ard, fore, main, and mizzen, sir. But the main, that's the big un with the cloud on it, they usually calls it the spyglass, by reason of a lookout they kept when they was in the anchorage cleaning. For it's there they cleaned their ships, sir, asking your pardon." "I have a chart here," says Captain Smollett. "See if that's the place." Long John's eyes burned in his head as he took the chart, but by the fresh look of the paper I knew he was doomed to disappointment. This was not the map we found in Billy Bones' chest, but an accurate copy, complete in all things, names and heights and soundings, with the single exception of the red crosses and the written notes. Sharp as must have been his annoyance, Silver had the strength of mind to hide it. "Yes, sir," said he, "this is the spot, to be sure, and very prettily drawed out. Who might have done that, I wonder? The pirates were too ignorant, I reckon. Aye, here it is, Captain Kidd's anchorage, just the name my shipmate called it. There's a strong current runs along the south, and then away nor'ard up the west coast. Right you was, sir," says he, "to haul your wind and keep the weather of the island. Leastways, if such was your intention as to enter and careen, there ain't no better place for that in these waters." "Thank you, my man," says Captain Smollett. "I'll ask you later on to give us a help. You may go." I was surprised at the coolness with which John avowed his knowledge of the island, and I own I was half frightened when I saw him drawing near to myself. I did not know, to be sure, that I had overheard his counsel from the apple barrel, and yet I had by this time taken such a horror of his cruelty, duplicity, and power, that I could scarce conceal a shudder when he laid his hand upon my arm. "Ah," says he, "this here is a sweet spot, this island. A sweet spot for a lad to get ashore on. You'll bathe, and you'll climb trees, and you'll hunt goats, you will, and you'll get aloft in them hills, and like a goat yourself. Why, it makes me young again. I was going to forget my timber leg, I was. It's a pleasant thing to be young and have 10 toes, and you may lay to that. When you want to go a bit of exploring, you just ask old John, and he'll put up a snack for you to take along." And clapping me in the friendliest way upon the shoulder, he hobbled off forward and went below. Captain Smollett, the squire, and Dr. Livesey were talking together on the quarter-deck, and anxious as I was to tell them my story, I durst not interrupt them openly. While I was still casting about in my thoughts to find some probable excuse, Dr. Livesey called me to his side. He had left his pipe below, and being a slave of tobacco, he had meant that I should fetch it, but as soon as I was near enough to speak and not to be overheard, I broke out immediately. "Doctor, let me speak. Get the captain and squire down to the cabin, and then make some pretense to send for me. I have terrible news." The doctor changed countenance a little, but next moment he was master of himself. "Thank you, Jim. said he quite loudly. That was all I wanted to know, as if he had asked me a question. And with that he turned on his heel and rejoined the other two. They spoke together for a little, and though none of them started, or raised his voice, or so much as whistled, it was plain enough that Dr. Livesey had communicated my request. For the next thing that I heard was the captain giving an order to Job Anderson, and all hands were piped on deck. "My lads," said Captain Smollett, "I've a word to say to you. This land that we have sighted in this place we have been sailing for. Mr. Trelawney, being a very open-handed gentleman, as we all know, just asked me a word or two, and as I was able to tell him that every man on board had done his duty, alow and aloft, as I never asked to see it done better, why, he and I and the doctor are going below to the cabin to drink your health and luck." "To drink your health and luck." Ha 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 ha. That's so kind of them. You'll have grog served out for you to drink our health and luck. I'll tell you what I think of this. I think it handsome, and if you think as I do, you'll give a good sea cheer for the gentleman that does it." The cheer followed. That was a matter of course, but it rang out so full and hearty that I confess I could hardly believe these same men were plotting for our blood. "One more cheer for Captain Smollett," cried Long John when the first had subsided, and this also was given with a will. On the top of that, the three gentlemen went below, and not long after, word was sent forward that Jim Hawkins was wanted in the cabin. I found them all three seated round the table, a bottle of Spanish wine and some raisins before them, and the doctor smoking away with his wig on his lap, and that, I knew, was a sign that he was agitated. The stern window was open, for it was a warm night, and you could see the moon shining behind the ship's wake. "Now, Hawkins," said the squire, "you have something to say. Speak up." I did as I was bid, and as short as I could make it, told the whole details of Silver's conversation. Nobody interrupted me until I was done, nor did any one of the three of them make so much as a movement, but they kept their eyes upon my face from first to last. "Jim," said Dr. Livesey, "take a seat." And they made me sit down at a table beside them, poured me out a glass of wine, filled my hands with raisins, and all three, one after the other, and each with a bow, drank my good health and their service to me for my luck and courage. "Now, Captain," said the squire, "you were right and I was wrong. I own myself a donkey, and I await your orders." "No more a donkey than I, sir," returned the captain. "I never heard of a crew that meant to mutiny but what showed signs before for any man that had an eye in his head to see the mischief and take steps according. But this crew," he added, "beats me." "Captain," said the doctor, "with your permission, that's Silver, a very remarkable man." "He'd look remarkably well from a yardarm, sir," returned the captain, "but this is talk. This don't lead to anything. I see 3 or 4 points, and with Mr. Trelawney's permission, I'll name them." "You, sir, are the captain. It is for you to speak," says Mr. Trelawney grandly. "First point," began Mr. Smollett. "We must go on, because we can't turn back. If I gave the word to go about, they would rise at once. Second point, we have time before us, at least until the treasure's found. Third point, there are faithful hands. Now, sir, it's got to come to blows sooner or later, and what I propose is to take time by the forelock, as the saying is, and come to blows some fine day when they least expect it. We can count, I take it, on your own home servants, Mr. Trelawney." "As upon myself," declared the squire. 3, reckoned the captain. "Ourselves make 7, counting Hawkins here. Now about the honest hands." "Most likely Trelawney's own men," said the doctor, "those he had picked up for himself before he lit on Silver." "Nay," replied the squire, "Hands was one of mine." "I did think I could have trusted Hands," added the captain. Excuse me. "And to think that they're all Englishmen," broke out the squire. "Sir, I could find it in my heart to blow the ship up." "Well, gentlemen," said the captain, "the best that I can say is not much. We must lay to, if you please, and keep a bright lookout. It's trying on a man, I know. It would be pleasanter to come to blows, but there's no help for it till we know our men. Lay to and whistle for a wind. That's my view. Jim here, said the doctor, can help us more than anyone. The men are not shy with him, and Jim is a noticing lad. Hawkins, I put prodigious faith in you, added the squire. I began to feel pretty desperate at this, for I felt altogether helpless, and yet by an odd train of circumstances it was indeed through me that safety came. In the meantime, talk as we pleased, there were only 7 out of the 26 on whom we knew we could rely. And out of these 7, 1 was a boy, so that the grown men on our side were 6 to their 19. That is the end of chapter 10? Chapter 12, and the end of part 2, which is called The Sea Cook. So next time we will begin part 3, which is called My Shore Adventure, which is actually just 3 chapters, and we're going to read all 3 of them next time, beginning with chapter 13, How My Shore Adventure Began, and the first word is the. So last time I forgot to show you the picture. So here is the picture from the last edition, if I can get to it. To me he was unweariedly kind and always glad to see me in the galley. So here is Jim Hawkins talking to Long John Silver, who we found out today might not be the kind man that he purports to be. And let me just see, I don't remember if there was a picture today or not. Yeah, I don't see any from today. All right, so that's where we will stop.
Art gallery.
And it looks like we've got an art gallery coming. So we will adjourn after the art gallery. Good night.
Hello. The head's too big. I can see it. I drew Boba Fett. Doesn't look perfect.
What's the thing up here?
It's just the Boba Fett symbol.
Oh, okay.
It's on his chest
Cool.
right here.
It's a
Oh,
planet
awesome.
sliced in
Awesome,
half.
awesome.
It's not a planet sliced in half. It's just a, I don't know. It's like a
Salmon sliced in half.
gang symbol or something, or like a, I don't know, something like that. But yeah.
The Tusken Raider symbol.
All right. I just got inspired by the show that we were watching.
Before this.
Yeah.
So he doesn't actually get inspired by the story, just by the story before the story.
He just
All right.
gets
Well, I
inspired
love
by
y'all.
the costumes.
Good night.
See you.